Well, this Monday, it is the 15th of January 2024. You're right on time for KTN News Center. In this segment, you're going to be taking you through the Form 1 admission that is currently starting off this morning. And also, aside from that, we're going to be having a studio interview on matters cervical cancer. Remember, January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month. The Ministry of Health, together with relevant stakeholders, are encouraging prevention of the disease by having young girls vaccinated against human papillomavirus, that is HPV, that triggers the disease. A woman acquires HPV through sexual intercourse with a man with the virus, but uptake of the vaccine has been slow, risking more cases of cervical cancer in the future generations. Cervical cancer, remember, is the leading cause of cancer-related deaths and the second most common cancer among women, with 5,250 new cases and 3,268 deaths reported annually. That is according to data by Global Cancer Observatory. This Monday, we look at the causes, symptoms, and treatment. With me, I'm joined by beautiful ladies who are playing a crucial role in raising awareness. We have Rose Adero in my immediate left. Rose is a cervical cancer survivor and founder of a support group called Jithamini Dada, which is based in Embakasi West, who will be sharing with us her journey. Welcome so much to the studio. And we also have Benda Kithaka, who is the executive director of Kilele Health and also secretariat lead of Africa Cervical Health Alliance. Welcome, ladies, to the program. And I'm going to start with you, Rose, because you are a warrior. You're a cervical cancer survivor. Perhaps you can talk to us through your journey since you were diagnosed to date.
Thank you. Now, allow me to speak in Swahili. I'm more comfortable in Swahili. Okay. So, as you say, my name is Rose Adero. I am a cervical cancer survivor. Nilipatikana na cancer in the year 2015. Penye nilikuwa nafanya kazi every year mwezi wa 10 tulikuwa tunasaidia another organization ambayo ilikuwa na support watu wenye wako na cancer kudonate. So tunaongea na customer, wana donate yenye wako nacho kidogo, and then wenyewe pia wanatupea hiyo free screening. So the year 2015 nilienda screening mwezi wa 11, nikapatikana yangu haikuwa clear vile December. So nikaadvisiwa kwenda for more check-up. So nilitumwa nikaenda nikaona gynecologist, akani advise kufanya biopsy. Venye report ya biopsy ilirudi, ilipatikana niko na cervical cancer stage 1B. So nikashauriwa nifanye operation, ambapo nilifanya operation, nikafanya radio, nikafanya chemo. But hiyo wakati nilikuwa naendelea na kufanya chemo, my husband pia akaanza kuwa na chest pain. Na hiyo wakati nilikuwa naendelea na matibabu, una meet na different people wenye wako na different cancer. So venye niliona hizo symptom nikamuadvise nenda ufanyiwe CT scan. Alienda hospitali akafanyiwa CT scan na ikapatikana niko na stage 4 cancer, lung cancer. Na nikampoteza ndio mwaka ya 2017. Haikuwa wakati rahisi kwangu kwa sababu venye nimesema mimi ndio nilipatikana nayo kwanza. Na nikiwa naendelea na treatment, mzee pia akaugua. So haikuwa kazi rahisi, ilibidi niache yangu kwa sababu yake ilipatikana stage 4. Yangu ilikuwa stage 1B, haikuwa imeenda sana. So nianze kufuatilia hiyo matibabu ya mzee na bahati mbaya nikampoteza. Hiyo wakati nilikuwa nina face stigma sana sana kwa marafiki, not all of them. Baadhi yao, watu wa familia, mpaka tuliambiwa tumekasiwa. Na kweli I try to go back home, nikakae huko kwa sababu hiyo wakati pia job ilikatika penye nilikuwa nafanya kazi ikaisha. So nikasema the only way niende nyumbani, but nyumbani stigma ilikuwa juu. Watu walikuwa wanasema tumekasiwa, nika decide nirudi Nairobi. But venye nirudi Nairobi nilipata pia ni same thing, sina mtu wa kumuongelesha, sina pesa, nisingeweza kuendelea na treatment. Kumbuka nilikuwa stop ndio mzee apate treatment. So before that, mzee akianza kuugua, tulikuwa tunauza vitu tuliuza shamba, vitu zenye tulikuwa tumeinvest kujaribu kupata venye mzee atapata uzima, lakini bahati mbaya tumempoteza. So hicho kipindi chenye nilirudi huku Nairobi, nilikuwa nafikiria Nairobi itakuwa better, but nikapata ndio stigma iko juu zaidi. Niko na watoto 4 na last born alikuwa, wakati mzee alikuwa na pass, last born alikuwa yuko na 3 years. So nilikuwa naangalia, naona yenyewe only solution ni ku end my life. Na nikaona hao watoto wangu wengine ni wakubwa, kwa sababu mwenye last born alikuwa anafuata alikuwa form 3. Sasa nikaona ni end my life mimi na mtoto wangu huyu mdogo, kwa sababu sikuwa na option, sikuwa na pahali pa kukimbilia, hakukuwa na any support group yenye ninajua. So the day yenye nilikuwa decide ni end my life, nilibaki na mtoto wangu mdogo, nikafanya venye nitafanya, nikafunga mlango, nikafunga curtain. I think nilikuwa na depression pia, kwa sababu sikuwa nataka kuona light, sikuwa nataka kutoka nje, kwa sababu nilikuwa nafikiria maybe huku Nairobi itakuwa better, but nipata stigma iko kila pahali, hata kanisani. So that day nilikuwa decide ni end my life mimi na huyu mtoto wangu mdogo. Sasa nikiwa niko pale ndani, nimeita mtoto, tumekula vizuri, tumefunga curtains. Ile nataka tukunywe ile juice, kuna madam mwingine tulikuwa tunaishi naye kwa plot, akaja akaanza kanoka hiyo mlango kwa muda. Mimi sikufungua. Mtoto wangu ananiambia situfungue mama, sikufungua. Venye alinyamaza, nikaenda nitengeneze hizo curtain vizuri. Sasa ile kitu ikaniambia hebu angalia kama ameenda, tukakutana uso kwa kioo. Akaniambia Rose, kwa nini ufungui mlango? Nikaanza kulia. Akaniambia fungua mlango, kuna usaidizi somewhere. Najua hukumaliza treatment yako, lakini kuna usaidizi somewhere. Nimeambiwa twende na nataka nikupeleke ukasaidike uendelee na treatment. So nikafurahia, kwa sababu hiyo ndio kitu ilikuwa inaniumiza. Sikumaliza treatment, watu wanasema tumekasiwa, sina job. My first born msichana alikuwa anaenda akioshea watu ndio tupate venye tutajisaidia. Mimi sikuwa nataka kutoka hata nje. So tulienda na huyu madam, akanipea namba. Penye nilienda nikapewa namba ya msichana mwingine, tena nikapewa namba ya msichana mwingine, nikaanza kuluzo. Venye nirudi nyumbani, huyo madam alikuwa ni survivor. Akanipigia simu, akaniambia mimi ni survivor, nataka tukutane. So we meet na huyo lady, tukaongea. From there ndio maisha yangu ikachange. Venye nilimeet survivor wengine, nikasema kumbe mtu anaweza akasurvive. Kumbe mtu, kuna wenye wamesurvive na wako vizuri. So from there tulianza kutembea pamoja na survivors, nikameet organizations zingine, tukaanza kujipa nguvu, tukaanza kushauriana. Nao kama uliacha treatment, tutafute NHIF, tunasaidiana na advice. Na Mungu ni mwema, tukakutana tena na Kilele Health, inatusaidia sana kwa kutuongelesha, hata kutusupport kidogo penye wanaweza. Pia wanatu educate. Hii ilinipatia nguvu, kwa sababu nilikuja kurealize watu wengi wanaumia kutokujua kama kansa inatibika. Nikanipatia nguvu, nikafungua support group yangu yenye inajiita Jidhamini Dada, na tumebase in Embakasi West. So Jidhamini Dada ni support group. Most of us tunakuanga cancer patients na survivors, na wale watu wana to support. So hapo huwa tunakutana, tuna encourage watu, na pia tunatembelea watu, tunaongea na watu. Nilikuwa na hiyo roho ya kusaidia watu, kuongea na watu, sana sana cervical cancer. But then nikirudi hapo nyuma kidogo, Jidhamini Dada, watu wanajiulizanga why that name. Wakati tulikuwa tunameet wagonjwa wa cervical cancer, sana sana ni wamama. Kuna stigma, wamama wao wanajificha. Symptoms za cervical cancer huwa ni kutokwa na discharge, maybe yuko bleed. Wamama wengi hujifichanga, hataki ajulikane, hataki aende aonwe. So unapata anajibana, mpaka wengi wao wazee wanatoroka, kwa sababu kitu imetuunganisha ni tendo la ndoa, na ikipatikana tuko na hiyo shida. Wazee wengi wanajitoa na tuwalaumu, hawajui, hawajasomeshwa kwamba cervical cancer ni na inaweza ikatritiwa. So ilinipea nguvu. Unapata mwanamke anakosa ile confidence, anajificha, anajidharau, anaona tu ni kufa, unaona. So ili nisukuma niite hii group yangu Jidhamini Dada, uwe na ile thamani wewe mwenyewe, hata kama umepitia nini, uwe na ile thamani kwamba utatibiwa na upone. So Jidhamini Dada, ninajivunia save life mingi sana. Na sasa bado tunaendelea kusupport wa mama, kuwaongelesha, na Kilele Health pia inatafuta doctors wenye wamequalify, wanatutrain tukienda mashinani, juu sisi ndio tunakutana na wagonjwa wengi. And then another thing nikuja nikuambie, mimi ni survivor. Unakuwa na ile roho, hebu na mimi niende niangaliwe. So through training ya Kilele inatusaidia, tunaongelesha watu about HPV vaccine, na venye pia tunaweza kuprevent hayo magonjwa. Yeah.
Na kwanza cha niseme kwamba it was so good for you to be strong, sababu unakaa hapa na kuna wanawake wengi wanakusikia hapo nje na wanapata hiyo nguvu, because pia labda walikuwa kama wewe, they were losing hope, but at least you gave them hope. So perhaps unaweza tuambia, for example, are there any symptoms that you are getting but you are ignoring, maybe thinking, this is normal, this will end, are there any signs that we're ignoring, and what will you tell women ndio wasikuwa na ignore any small changes in their body?
Okay, kwanza cervical cancer symptoms zake ni za kawaida kwa mwanamke. Kwa sababu tukisema hiyo back pain, mgongo kuuma sana sana ukikaribia wakati wa period, chini ya tumbo, hizo ni normal nini zenye wanawake huonanga sana sana wakati wao wa hedhi. Another thing, kutokuwa na discharge. Unaweza ukatokwa na discharge na ukaiassume yenye huwa tunatokwa kama kawaida. But ni wewe mwenyewe uchukue jukumu, ujiangalie hii discharge ni aina gani. Mimi naambianga watu usingoje. Jaribu uende hata screening hata mara moja kwa mwaka. Uende uangaliwe, kwa sababu ukipatikana early stage, matibabu sahihi ni rahisi. Kuna venye inaweza ikafriziwa pia without kufanyiwa operation. So mimi naweza nikaambia wamama usingoje uone dalili, kwa sababu ikifikia ile wakati maybe unatokwa na discharge paka ya damu, maybe itakuwa imeenda stage nyingine. Kwa nini ungoje? Chukua tu wakati wako, at least mara moja kwa mwaka uende uangaliwe.
Rose, Benda, she just talked about preventive measures, for example, screening. And do I have to wait for it to get to a certain level? For example, a certain stage, or should I go instantly, or should I make it a normal routine for me to start going through this screening? And also maybe you can tell us what are some of these preventive measures that as women we can take, and at what stage?
Okay, so even before we get to that point of discussing how we can prevent cervical cancer, I think it's important, Grace, that we get women to understand what is cervical cancer. And I will start just a little bit behind with what is cancer. Cancer is the abnormal development of cells that grow faster than other cells in the body, and they start eating into other parts of the same organ and even spread to other parts of the body. So it's abnormal growth of cells. When we talk about the cervix, it's not visible to the eye unless somebody is a clinician, they can do the examination. It's a part of the body that is the entrance to the uterus, okay? And also the cover for the uterus when a woman is conceiving and getting a baby. So with that in mind, we need to know that for women, one, you cannot see the cervix the way you see your face or the way you see your hand, and therefore somebody else needs to help with seeing that. That is why when we say we're going screening, we're going so that somebody else can look at that body organ to see if there are any changes. Secondly, that's not the only screening modality that there is. There are 3 different types of screenings now available here in Kenya. You can get either the normal one, the most commonly available and most commonly known is pap smear, because if you go online and you search and you say cervical cancer screening, you'll get a pap smear. And that's where a doctor or a clinician or a nurse goes and takes out a bit of a sample, takes it to the lab looks at it through a microscope and sees if there are any changes in the cells. The second one is the visual inspection using acetic acid. Again, this requires a clinician to go and look at the cervix to see what is developing and to be able to do a smear that they will check for changes of the cells and then be able to tell the woman if she needs to seek further treatment for cervical cancer. The third one is HPV testing. And that is one of the latest and most efficient ways of checking for cervical cancer. In this, again, you can have a clinician-assisted sample collection, or there is self-sample collection. Why I'm taking you through these three is so that women know they have choices and they have chances for prevention. When you listen to Rose and she's saying, for her, she went on opportunistic screening because at their workplace they used to support other people. For her, even the signs and symptoms had not yet started. That's how come we have stage 1B. For that to happen, women need to be self-aware, to know that at least once in a lifetime, you should have gone for screening. The WHO says twice in a lifetime, so at the age of 35 and at the age of 45. But because we know cervical cancer takes time to develop in the body, if a woman has started having sex as early as 18 years old, it will take 10 to 15 years to develop in that body, then she needs to get screened even at the age of 25. Okay? That's the first screening. If we find nothing, if there is no cells developing into cancer, if there are no cell changes, she can wait for 5 to 10 years, and we have guidelines in Kenya, 5 to 10 years before the next screening. So again, early detection, primary prevention, very early getting screened as early as possible is one of the ways, so that we catch it as early as possible, way before it develops into cancer, and that way we can prevent. The second one is the vaccine.
Yeah. Before we get to the vaccine,
yes,
let's talk about the myths and what she went through.
Yes.
Because so many women are going through this. Because myself, I can imagine right now, if I'm told that I have cancer, in my head, I'll think this is a death sentence automatically. So now let's talk about the myths in that, and maybe when we have this awareness, for example, in your group, what do you tell women when they go through phases where people are telling them, oh, you're cursed, or you're this, or you're that? What do you tell women in terms of awareness?
My organization works with survivors and caregivers. Kilele Health was formed on the premise that we want to challenge perceptions, we want to challenge action, and we want to inspire hope. When somebody listens to Rose and hears that she survived cervical cancer, it's so much easier for that person to identify and say, oh, she survived, I can too, I will go get screened, than us talking about it with science and all the evidence base until we get the lived experience to come and speak and say, it is possible. I speak from lived experience. Before I came into this space, I used to be in marketing and communications in corporate Kenya. That was about 15 years ago, okay? I came into this space because my sister was told she has cervical cancer. It was not cervical. It was pre-cancer of the cervix. But at that time, we didn't know. Even I hadn't gone for screening. But when she was told that and she went, we took her through treatment. We took her through first the diagnosis, then the treatment and the recovery. And I realized how easy it is if it's found at early stages. That's how I came with this lived experience. And that's where my conviction comes from. So we call on women as an organization to bring their lived experiences, survivors, caregivers, people who have taken care of others, technical experts who are clinicians, oncologists, people who have the technical expertise and knowledge, to bring that lived experience so that we can get to women to understand. Cervical cancer is the one cancer that gives us time. It gives us time to prevent. It gives us time to act early. It gives us time to even treat early, and gives us time for 100% recovery if discovered early. So in the stigma conversation, I keep saying, any one of us as a woman could potentially be a candidate for cervical cancer. because it develops in the body slowly. You don't know what's going on in your body. So anyone is at risk of cervical cancer as long as they've had sexual intercourse, they've been infected with HPV, multiple reinfections of HPV. And therefore, the one weapon we have as women is to be self-aware. To be able to know, one, I need to take that action to go get screened. Okay? To know, the second thing is if we find anything, it's easily treatable if discovered early. However, some women will go get screened, they will be told we see something, their fear will lead them into not wanting to take action. Please take action as early as possible so that the doctors can be able to deal with it in the early stages. At early stages, we even have modalities to freeze those cells. And in 3 months, the woman is as good as new. And there is no need for surgery, there is no need for chemotherapy, no need for radiotherapy. But the longer we wait, the more the cells are developing more in the system, the higher the risk of advanced disease, which requires all these other treatments. The second thing about stigma, it's lack of knowledge and fear. I keep saying, and this is in every situation, fear paralyzes people. Fear makes you feel like you're helpless and you cannot be able to. You've heard Rose's story. She was almost taking her life and that of her child because of the fear of what will happen next. I don't have anything to go to. But that woman coming and knocking on her door gave her hope. Okay? Talking to other survivors give her hope. So for us as an organization, we're educating survivors how to reach out to others. Last year, one of the highlights of my organization was 13 survivors from Nairobi and Mombasa being trained with psychosocial counseling. So now we have survivors who have been trained on cervical cancer, been trained on breast cancer, on early detection, on prevention, and then they've been equipped with counseling skills so that they're not approaching it from just their lived experience. They're also approaching it from, now I'm a counselor, I can be able to give evidence-based knowledge on how to cope with the disease. That for me is joy. And the more we equip survivors with that knowledge, the more we equip caregivers, the more we equip people who will reach the community mashinani, the more we will get a hand on this disease. Because then information is power, it's close to the people, and they can be able to act on it quickly. That's what we're doing.
All right. Speaking of fear, and as human beings, we have fear of unknown. And I'll get to Rose. When you thought about going for screening, of course you're afraid. You're like, should I not go? Because everyone is like, what if? There is that what if. How was it for you before you decided, you know what, I'm just going to get screened? How was that for you, that fear, and how did you overcome that fear of like, I'll just go, whatever outcome it is, let me just go get screened?
Okay, as I said before, kuna organization tulikuwa tunasaidia. So before we decide kutu screen, wanakuja, they talk to us, wanatuambia umuhimu ya kuwa screening. So nikienda, yes, nilikuwa na hiyo fear, but at least nilikuwa nimejua umuhimu ya kuwa screen mapema. Yeah.
All right. Benda, we know that cervical cancer mainly comes through sexual intercourse. And when we say this, the men feel like they are safe because they have given you the HPV. Go along with it. Are they really safe, thinking that, you know, you're the carrier of cervical cancer, now I'm good?
So for as long as we're reducing stigma and fear, let me start from the beginning. Cervical cancer is caused by human papillomavirus, not by men having sex with women. It's just that men are carriers of HPV and women are the ones who get cervical cancer because they have the cervix. But HPV has also been found to cause other cancers. Cancer of the penis, so penile cancer, cancer of the throat, okay, anal cancer, vaginal cancer, vulval cancer. 4 of those affect women. Okay? Because if you think cervical, if you think vulval, if you think vaginal, and also anal cancer, those are women's reproductive organs. Anal cancer does affect men as well, and penile cancer does affect men as well, and throat cancer can affect both men and women. So if we are dealing with HPV, then we need to deal with it holistically from a knowledge perspective, from an awareness perspective, from a prevention perspective, that we need to deal with it, that men can be at risk of HPV, women are at risk of HPV. Cervical cancer, which is the second leading cause of death in Kenya and across Africa. In some countries, it's actually the leading cause of death, cancer death in Africa, then needs to be put center stage for prevention, because we know we have the technologies, we have the capacities, and we have the ability to prevent it. Okay? So as opposed to calling on men and saying, hey, you're the carriers, I think we ought to call on men and tell them, look, you have loved ones who are women in your families. You have your daughters, get them vaccinated if they are eligible. You have your sisters, you have your cousins who are women, you have your parents. If you can't talk to your mom about cervical cancer, let your sister be informed to talk to your mom. Let your aunties be informed to talk to your mom, so that we start looking at it as a societal issue, not a woman's issue. Okay? The same with community leaders. I look at our political leadership and I keep thinking, you have the capacity to bring 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 100,000 people to a forum and to a meeting, and you don't have somebody to talk about cervical cancer, and yet these are the people you're relying on for votes tomorrow. You're doing them a disservice. It ought to be one of the conversations we have in every conversation, okay? Because with early detection, it can be prevented. And so when we think about community leaders, when we think about people at the pulpit, the religious leaders, the faith-based leadership, when we talk about clinical experts, when we talk about even schools, we all have a role.